driving the RV you see behind me for 12 years now, and over the course of time, the checklist has evolved into what it is today. In the beginning, I had a super simple checklist, and as things happen or things change, the checklist evolves. So I thought I'd give you just a quick look at mine. Okay, here's my regular checklist. This is my standard one. This here is my emergency. This is just general aviation information that sometimes you might need while you're flying. And rather than have it the same size, I put this in a different area. Just some general things. We'll go over that. Anyway, let's look at the standard stuff first. Okay, I hope you can see that. This is my standard checklist. Pre-flight area. Of course, all that stuff is just anything you would do on any pre-flight. This is before engine start. And like I said, this is evolutionary. If you notice right here, wings clear. That's on there because one time I left my phone and my wallet sitting on the wing. Closed the canopy, started the engine, and took off. And when I got back, there was my phone and my wallet sitting right there in the taxiway. So I added wings clear. All these other things, let's see, CO detector on. I put that there because I recently got one and put it in the plane. I don't typically use it on local flights, but if I'm on a long cross country, I absolutely use it. Passenger brief, some things I've forgotten before is to turn a passenger headset on, to tell them about if they get nauseated or feel sick, and to always use them as spotters because two sets of eyes are much better than one, and of course what to do in the event of an emergency. Here's my engine start stuff right here, pretty straightforward. I do have two batteries, so I've got a main and an auxiliary, and I've got a little switch in the cockpit where I can check the voltage on both of them before I do anything else. Moving on down here, right there, added fuel set. I don't know how many times I've added fuel and then forgot to reset my Dynons, so I put that there. Another important one is before taxi, once you've started the engine, check density altitude. Now, I live down here in Foley, Alabama, about 75 feet above sea level, and I don't ever really have to think about that, especially in an RV. But I realize I'm no different than anyone else. I could take off out of here and land at an airport that might be 5,000 or 6,000 foot elevation, and you add some density altitude with that and say 30 gallons of fuel, and the situation could change. I've seen more than one story where guys didn't even, they forgot to think about that. So just to get it in my brain, I added density altitude before taxi, just so I can look at it and think about it. Up here is the engine run up, real straightforward. Before takeoff, straightforward stuff. Here's something I've added, and I'm going to do a separate video on this, but engine failure, this is before I take off. This is after everything's ready to go, and I'm ready to make my call and taxi out onto the runway. I want to review what's going to happen if my engine quits. It's better to have just thought about it and have it in your brain than to be surprised when you're at 300 or 400 feet and it sputters. Take off and climb, cruise flight, pretty routine kind of stuff here. Descent for landing, belt check, brake check, fuel pump on, my auxiliary battery. Let's talk about that for just a second. I run the auxiliary battery from start up until I'm after takeoff, and I look at my amps, and if my charging is not 3, 4, 5 amps, it's down to 0 to 1, I know that that battery is fully charged, and I'll switch it off. Well, here before landing, I turn it back on about 10 minutes or so before I land, and that way it tops it off. Even though it hadn't been used, it's being charged just a little bit more before I land. And another reason is if I lost the engine and I'm down close to the ground, I want all the cranking power I've got available, turning that prop. So that's another reason I like it on when I'm close to the ground. Landing, straightforward, engine shut down, straightforward. One thing I always forgot to do was to set how much fuel I used on my little fuel computer. So I've added that right there. Now let's flip this around to the other side. Like I said, all of this is routine operating. And here's just some general information I've added from the Lycoming manual or about my alternator. Added it to here just for my own information as I'm flying along. Fuel management. A lot of people wonder, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do fuel management, and I think probably the most common way is you fly along, you burn 5, 6, 7, 8 gallons out of the left tank or the right tank, and then you switch to the opposite tank, you burn the same amount, just to keep that balance thing going on between the left wing and the right wing. I don't do it that way. I burn 7 gallons out of the left, and I start on the left because that's where I sit on the left side, and typically I'm by myself. So I burn it out of the heavy side, and then I'll switch it to the right tank. And instead of burning just 7 gallons and going through the process of switching back and forth, I'll burn 14 gallons out of the right tank. Then I switch back to the left tank and burn 7. Now that leaves me with about, 6 or 7 gallons left in each tank. And for me, that's about my cutoff. I'm looking for an airport to land at with some fuel. And you may say, well, you still got plenty of gas to go a little ways. Well, you're right, but I have a tank down here in the lower part of my belly that needs emptied. And at the same time, that's when I fill these tanks. All right, some V speeds, maneuvering speeds, some weather information. I always had problems with Zulu time, so I made this little table for myself to help me convert that stuff. Temperatures. All right, let's go to checklist. Emergency. This sits in the plane, by the way, like this. So if there's an emergency, I reach for this one. Okay, here's the emergency checklist. And this right here is my little mnemonic to help me remember to start the engine, pump mixture, selector ignition. And if it doesn't start, then I'm going to be going over that again, turn the pump off, mixture lean, selector to the off position, ignition switch off, toggles off, flaps off. And when you get down low, not flaps off, when you get down low, drop some flaps and then master switch off and open the canopy so that the latch and just over your head is what keeps it shut. There's more detailed, extreme engine roughness. A lot of this kind of stuff I learned from Mike Bush's book, Engines, or his videos. Excellent source of information. But one of the things he points out is if you're flying along and all of a sudden you have extreme engine roughness, what he calls an all hell breaking loose scenario, think about a magneto failure. One or the other mags has had an internal failure, like maybe the plastic gear inside has failed, and now instead of 25 degrees before top dead center, it's firing at 40 degrees before top dead center. So in that situation, if all of a sudden if you have extreme engine roughness, his all hell breaking loose scenario, first thing I'm going to do is do a mag check. Shut that mag off, and you're running on the good mag again. Of course, that kind of helps diagnose what the problem is and means you need to get on the ground. Emergency landing, smoke or fire, engine, electrical, emergency descent, alternator breaker trips, amps and volts problems, decreasing electrical load, and electrical device failures, if I lose my iPad or whatever. Okay, now a quick look at some of these others. Here's kind of an important one. If you have CHTs and EGT changes while you're flying, or you lose power, whether it's the engine still running smoothly and you lose power, or if it starts running rough and you lose power, all of those things you can find out lots more information by watching Mike Bush's stuff. But I've got those things written there because I'm going to tell you, when something happens, at least to me, if I have a problem, my brain goes to mush. I've had a couple of problems, not in this plane, but another one I had before this. and your brain just kind of goes to mush. So it's nice to have it in writing in front of you. Here I've got some checklists, you know, if I'm going on a cross-country flight, stuff I need in the plane, camping gear, personal items, stuff in my electronics bag. What's on the other side of this one? Oh, here's, this is just some stuff up here. That's general definitions. This is weight and balance for my airplane right there. Another one, sometimes I look at this. This is how my airplane's kind of wired up for ADS-B and all that stuff. Performance and weather data right here. I saw these, I had a aviation book years ago, and this was in that book, and I really liked it. It gives, this is standard atmospheric conditions, this is non-standard and how it affects altitudes, and this is non-standard pressure, and this is non-standard pressure and temperature. So just a pictorial representation of what we know, but it's nice as a reference once in a while. On this side, this is just miscellaneous stuff here, but this here I thought was important. Had I not seen this, and I had a military helicopter or jet intercept me, I wouldn't have known what those signals mean. So God forbid it ever happens, this is what they mean. And I think it's nice to have that information available. And the last one right here, just some general airspace information, ceilings, pan, maydays. Here's one that I wanted to have access to. If you have to do a NASA form and make a confession, I didn't know really how to do that, so I looked it up, and that's where this comes from. Obstacle stuff. Let's see what's on the back of this one. Oh, this is the equipment that's in my airplane, what it does for me, and if it goes out, what I might use as a backup. Autopilot functions, how oil flows through the engine. Anyway, that's a quick look at my checklist. Hope you enjoyed the video.